skill booster, we are going to be working with color charts again, only this time, instead of focusing mainly on color mixing, we are going to be focusing on color layering. So one of the biggest questions that I get asked fairly often is, how do you know what color to use as your undertone whenever you're putting that translucent underpainting on your board? So the answer to that is really, it comes with experience. It comes with trying different things out and knowing what works well together. But this is another method that you can use, and this is to help you kind of have fun actually doing the process of making the color chart, but also being able to come back and refer to these boards to see, okay, what happens if I put a magenta undertone with a cad red light over the top? Hey, and you've got all these different charts that you can refer to. So the only thing that I would caution you with in doing this is that you don't use this as a crutch, because it can hinder your spontaneity if you're relying too much on a tool like this. Okay, although it's a great tool to have, and especially when you're a beginner or starting out and you haven't used this particular alla prima style before with these brilliant colors, this is a great method and something that you can kind of refer to in the beginning. So in this particular color wheel, if you look at your skill boosters under your helpful hints, you will see the PDF on the instructions on putting together a color layering chart like this one. So this is on an 8x8 canvas board, and it's divided into grids. So this particular one, each of these undertones, this particular row, was done with transparent red medium. This next one was done with permanent rose, okay, magenta, Indian yellow, etc., etc. So these rows are all the same underpainting. And then these rows across are the same opaques. So the opaques are layered or labeled here in the margin. So these are cad red light, for example, and you can see what that looks like. There's not much of a change when you have transparent red medium under your cad red light. But as you move down the spectrum here, it does start to show up a little bit more. So if we look at another one, for example, this has got more opposite colors underneath from the cad red light. So you can kind of see what that looks like and have that as a nice reference. So those are the 8x8s. Okay, something else you could do is paint. This is a 16x20, and I just divided it with tape into 4 sections. So we've got 4 blocks of color, and I went ahead for the underpainting and just painted the entire area rather than doing rows. So in this instance, you do want to make sure that you're kind of keeping notes on what combinations you're using. So this particular one, for example, was a transparent red medium undertone. And then I just went in order of my palette. So if you look over here and refer to the palette, you can see in my particular order I've got sap green, phthalo green, Caribbean blue, ultramarine blue, so on and so forth. And so over here, that's what we did. We went in order of the palette, only I added white with each color. So you can see what that looks like. As we get down to this row here, you can see I've added Indian or ice blue instead of white. So I went through the whole listing again, starting with sap green all the way through, mixing with ice blue. So you can see the difference. So this particular one I've already started, and I'm going to work on a little bit here for you today. So we've got transparent oxide orange as our transparent undercoat, underpainting. And on this one I've decided to use one color, and what I'm doing, if you look at the palette, is I'm taking phthalo green with my chosen color, and I'm going around each square using these opaque colors in order. So the first square here was phthalo green mixed with ice blue. This next square here was phthalo green mixed with the next color in line, which was white. The next one was brilliant yellow light. Okay, and then cad yellow light, or cad lemon, and then cad yellow medium. So our next color that we're mixing phthalo green with, we're just going to pull a little bit of that phthalo green into our mixing area, picking up a little bit of cad yellow deep. So phthalo green and cad yellow deep. Making sure I've got plenty of paint so I can scoop up lots of paint. And my transparent undercoat on this particular color chart is already dry. Okay, so normally when you're painting, you're using a wet underpainting. And you can do that with this color chart, but this one's actually been sitting for a couple days. But I just wanted to show you what happens if you're painting on a dry surface. So I want to be able to see lots of little specks of the undertone as we pull that paint through. So I take that glob of paint that's on the brush and just lightly hold the brush onto the board and then just lightly pull that across, and you can see that leaves lots of little spaces that are speckling and peeking through underneath that main opaque color. So we're going to go ahead and clean off the brush, and now we're coming back to our phthalo green, and now we're moving to cad orange. So phthalo green and cad orange. Making sure that you mix very thoroughly because you don't want to have streaks of orange or streaks of green in there. So I'm just taking that brush, moving it back and forth with the width of the brush, and then scooping that color up on the tip of the brush and just pulling it, dragging it down across that board so you can see that color peeking through. So the advantage of having it dry in this instance is that we can see that color really well as it just skips across the surface. If you have a wet undercolor, that's also an advantage because then you can see, that's what I did here, is I allowed that color to skip, and then as we have less color at the end of the stroke, you can see it starts to blend into that undercolor a little bit, and you can see what happens when those colors mix. So we're coming back over to our phthalo green, and cad red light is our next color. So phthalo green and cad red light. Again, making sure you're mixing thoroughly. And then scooping that color up, placing it into the next square. You can see it starts to get a little more neutral because we're working with opposite colors. Cad red light is a complementary color to phthalo green. So green and red are opposites on the color wheel. Now the cool thing about complementary colors, as a side note, is if you want something to look more vibrant and you're having a hard time getting it to look lighter or more vibrant, if you place its complementary color next to it, it's going to immediately pop that color out. So for example, if you have a yellow sunflower and it's not standing out as yellow and bright as you would like it to, just pop a little bit of purple next to it and it will pretty much jump off the surface. You'll have a nice vibrant yellow. Okay, so our last color on this particular row is going to be a mixture of phthalo green and transparent red medium. Now both of these colors are transparent. So as you can see, they are going very dark. So a lot of times whenever I'm making a color chart and I'm wanting to be able to see that color, I'll bring it up just by adding in one of my opaque neutrals. So let's just go ahead and use white. So I'm just pulling some of that white into it. You can see by mixing transparent red medium and phthalo green, we get a gray. They're opposite colors and they create a neutral. So depending on the pigment of those colors will determine whether it goes more to a brown color or a gray color. Again, scooping that paint up and then allowing that to just fall off the brush. Okay, so go ahead and try this on your own. Decide on your color combinations. Take good notes and label those colors so that you have those to refer to. And again, remember not to use this as a crutch, but just a tool to help you as you get started trying to figure out how those colors work underneath the opaque colors.